So first, I want to welcome all of you to the Vacature Attorney Network. We're absolutely thrilled to kick this off with all of you, and I'm just happy to have you here today and to be a part of this network. So I'll tell you a little bit about what that means. But first, I want to introduce our Vacature team leads. Myself, Jamie Beck, I'm the President and Managing Attorney of Free to Thrive. Erin Hiltz is a staff attorney and she coordinates our Vacature program. And if you are a pro bono attorney of ours, you probably have worked with her, hopefully have worked with her as one of our pro bono lawyers. And she works mainly with our pro bono lawyers, but also oversees the Vacature program. And last but not least, we have Tammy Humphries, who is a staff attorney in our Vacature program and is definitely a specialist on post-order compliance, which is something that has been particularly challenging for anybody who's doing Vacature work. You know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't gotten there yet, that's okay. We'll all be here to walk you through the process. So I want to share with all of you a little bit about what the Vacature Attorney Network is. So the purpose of the Vacature Attorney Network is really to bring together attorneys throughout the state of California working on vacature. So what we noticed doing this work, and Free to Thrive started the year California's vacature law went into effect, which was 2017, and we've been doing this work ever since. And in that time, we found that oftentimes those of us doing this work know each other, and so we'll reach out to other attorneys doing this work and say, hey, I had this come up in a case. Can you answer some questions, or have you filed in this jurisdiction, or have you dealt with this issue before? And so we're talking one-on-one to each other and supporting one another. And we're all learning this together because it still is a relatively new law and we're still figuring it out. What we hope to do with this network is really to bring everybody together. So as opposed to these one-off conversations, us all know who in California is practicing vacature on behalf of survivors, know each other, and importantly, have a referral network. I mean, we get tons of calls at Free to Thrive for survivors looking for legal services for vacature help in other places, and we want to be able to refer clients or survivors to others doing this work in other places. So one is to create a referral network, to provide resources to any attorney doing this work. We've developed a lot of internal resources that we use at Free to Thrive that we provide to our pro bono lawyers. And we realize that there's a lot of lawyers that are not pro bono lawyers of Free to Thrive that would benefit from the resources that we've gathered. And in the lead up to launching this network, I can say that Erin and Tammy have worked extremely hard to create templates for all of you, to gather resources in one place. And a huge part of this network is going to be having access to those. Another piece is training. We are all learning this together. There's a lot of things that we still are learning in the process. And so we want to provide ongoing training to this network of attorneys. And lastly, just networking. Like I said, people reach out to us with questions, and we know that there's many people learning this along with us. And oftentimes we don't have all the answers, and we want us all to know each other so that we can all, learn from each other and do this work together. And so we've created this network and structured it in a way that we hope will facilitate all of those things. We did refer to those things as member benefits, and what we're really hoping to have is that people opt in to being members of the Vacature Attorney Network, VAN for short. There's no cost to it. It's purely just an opt-in if you're an attorney doing this work and want to be a part of this network. But part of it is that we want to share these resources, but we want people to be actively engaged in this network, not just take these resources and then go use them, because there's this learning curve that happens, and the resources would be helpful, but they'd be a lot more helpful if you have the opportunity to engage with other lawyers doing this work. So who is VAN for? VAN is specifically intended for attorneys and legal professionals pursuing vacature on behalf of survivors. So I don't know everybody who's here today. I don't know if there's people who don't fit into this category, and that's okay. You're welcome to come, today and be a part of this meeting. But really, we want to not only create the resources, but also to have a space where we can talk amongst ourselves. And so if there are any prosecutors in the room, in the Zoom room, or maybe people not practicing vacature, you're just here to see what this is all about, that's totally fine. But given that we're going to have time, and Erin's going to walk us through what we're going to do in our open forums, but there will be opportunities for us to talk amongst ourselves about our cases in a way that keeps our clients confidential, but still answers questions. We want it to be a space where we can have those conversations candidly and say, I'm dealing with this DA's office in this place, and I'm having this challenge, and I wouldn't want people to not feel comfortable asking the questions that they have, because there might be opposing counsel as part of this. And so for that reason, we are not including prosecutors in this group. That's not to say that we don't have a lot to learn from them, and we very much intend to bring prosecutors at certain times for learning opportunities. So we'll have trainings, and we may ask prosecutors to join the trainings, but for purposes of the dialogue and interaction, we want it to be just for survivor attorneys. So if this doesn't describe you, that's okay. We won't tell anybody, but just something that we wanted to be mindful of. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Erin, who's going to walk us through the virtual resource library.
Thank you, Jamie. And I'm actually going to send real quick a link that will take you, all of you, to the resource folder. Currently, it is set to anybody who has this link is able to open it. But after today's call, and once we have a better sense of who's going to be in the Vacature Attorney Network, we're going to switch it over so that you have to be manually added, just so that way there aren't things floating around that may no longer be usable or good, or the right way that things are done in certain jurisdictions. So I've sent that in the chat. You're welcome to open that and follow along with me if you'd like, but we do have screenshots here in the presentation, so try not to get too distracted by the pretty folder over there. So in the virtual resource library, we have a few different categories of resources. We have California Vacature contacts, which includes anybody that we think you should be talking to in these different jurisdictions that might be helpful in terms of filing, following up, or making sure that folks are compliant with the things they need to be compliant for. We have the member directory for all the people who will be in the Vacature Attorney Network, so that if you meet somebody on one of these Zooms and you want to follow up with them later, you'll be able to track down their contact information. You don't have to quickly try and get that out in the chat. There's also a variety of guides on how to file in different jurisdictions, but also how to follow up in those jurisdictions, how to read a DOJ report, and things kind of that nature. There's templates for all of those different court orders that people are filing, some samples. That's actually the thing we get the most requests for, is people are new to this space or new to this law, and they don't know what a vacature petition looks like. They have no idea what gets included in a declaration. So these are sanitized samples that don't include client information. Most of the current samples are in the San Diego folder, though there is also one in the Los Angeles folder. We broke it down by jurisdiction just because in those jurisdictions, those are vacatures that have been granted. So you kind of get a sense of what's been successful there. But if you're practicing in a jurisdiction that's outside San Diego or outside Los Angeles, obviously you're still welcome to read those samples and kind of go from there. And as I mentioned, there's a little bit regarding the process and the procedures for each jurisdiction. And we'll talk today about how to contribute to the Vacature Resource Library, because it's not something you'll be able to just drag and drop in. We didn't want it to become kind of a free-for-all. So it just involves emailing me and chatting with me to make sure that I put it in the right spot for you. And then Jamie, if you could click to the next slide for me. So we talked super briefly about the different contacts list, and here's a quick screenshot of both of them. Obviously, the Vacature Attorney Network contacts, which is the one on the left in purple, will grow as the network continues to grow. But in the meantime, at least you've got contact information for Jamie, Tammy, and I. And then on the right in blue, we see some of those different California Vacature contacts that people might need to reach out to. And it includes things like their name, any contact method that we have, whether that's a phone number or email address, and all the proper pronouns to use for them if we know them, and some notes on how they can help you. And then if we can click to the next one. So the California Vacature contact form, the one that we saw there in blue, is something that anybody can add to. So if you have a contact that isn't listed in there, you are welcome to include them. I'm going to send a quick link again here in the chat to everybody so that they are able to submit that when they would like to. Then you can include things on what would be helpful to fellow members of this network. What would be helpful for them to know about contacting this particular person or this agency for whichever sort of purpose. So far, so good?
Yes, I just want to add one thing to that, Erin.
Yeah.
So, going back to what I was saying about how we have this kind of one-way street of like, people will reach out to us or we'll reach out to other people. And, among the things we're trying to do to just like collect and disseminate information is this list. What we found is that every time we go to file in a new jurisdiction, we have to find out who is the person within the prosecutorial agency, who is the point person on all things vacature. We very much like to reach out either pre-filing or after filing before the court hearing to find out if they are going to oppose it or if they'll stipulate to it. And this is our list of contacts that we've developed over the last 4 years, and we're openly sharing that with all of you to benefit from all those contacts that we've made. But you'll see it's very Southern California focused. We have a couple people north of LA, but not many. And so, for those of you, especially if you're, in the Bay Area or further north than that, we would welcome any contacts you have on this list because it'll benefit everybody doing this work. But particularly with respect to the prosecuting agencies, this is where that list is super helpful.
And with the compliance, as Tammy has learned, there's always one person in that office that you have to talk to, and they're really good about hiding who that person is. So Tammy has done a lot of legwork to help build out that compliance piece of vacature. Unfortunately, it's not enough just to get the court order, as we have learned. So, lots of good stuff in there. All right. And then the next slide that we have discusses the forums, and it's going to have the PDF of the PowerPoints that are used in the forums. It'll have the agenda, which I believe was circulated, and then any notes that are taken during the forum will also be available for people who maybe they're part of the network, but they weren't able to attend that particular meeting and they don't want to miss out on the things that were discussed or the contacts they could have made. And next slide. In the references section, I'm trying to build it out to include additional resources that we might cite more often in our petitions. Right now, we have the Shared Hope International report in there that look at that space to continue to grow as we continue to download things that might be useful to you all and that we use, because it's sometimes hard to remember all the different things that we're citing or the different places and reports that we've found helpful. So this is a nice space to keep them all in one spot. Then we have all the goodies that we talked about sort of high level earlier. This is the resources by jurisdiction folder. In the main folder, it's things that aren't perhaps jurisdiction specific. And you see things like the visual process of walking through vacature, how to read a DOJ report, the adverse childhood experience score packet, which just contains a few more questions that you might be able to use in terms of building out your declaration or the survivor's declaration. And in that ACE packet, it's something that some survivors may be familiar with because it's the adverse childhood experience score is something that a lot of different organizations use. So if it's something that they've already done before, you can kind of walk them back through it. If it's not something that they've done before, you have the option to do the adverse childhood experience assessment and determine what their ACE score is. And use those questions from there. Kind of breaks it down into different events that may have happened during their childhood that could have an impact on how they developed into a young adult or adult. Then next we have the survivor story questions, again, broken down by category to kind of walk you and your client through the vacature process and the declaration drafting stage. Last but not least, we have both corroborating documents list and then just a vacature packet that helps you finalize and make sure that you have all the different things that you need kind of presented in the appropriate order with those corroborating documents that help just refine and confirm the details that are included in the client's declaration. Here's a quick screenshot of the San Diego folder. You'll notice that there's a few different declarations and petitions in there. If there's one in there that includes some language regarding labor trafficking, because that is an area where people seem to have more questions than the sex trafficking piece of things. I think when we're working through things, it is more common to have sex trafficking charges show up related to prostitution or drugs. And so it's perhaps easier to identify those sex trafficking survivors and to offer them services. But we wanted to make sure that there was also a labor trafficking declaration and petition in there so that you all have access to those. We also see that one of our first order compliance guides there for the San Diego Police Department. And it is an incredible resource for following up and making sure that the police department destroys the records that they're supposed to destroy in order to get that client their fresh start. Alrighty, and these are some of our statewide resources. It includes some post-order compliance pieces, as well as some judicial forms and an offense chart template that is super helpful in making sure that your order includes all of the information that you need in order to actually vacate the charges and have the records sealed and destroyed. Right. One of the things that Jamie touched on briefly as one of the benefits for joining the Vacature Attorney Network was the technical assistance office hours. And I included my headshot in there because those were the days when I could have access to a hairstylist, and boy, do I miss those. Those technical assistance office hours are on Mondays at 5 p.m. So this time, kind of this space, it's open to anybody with questions about Vacature in California. And because it's a recurring meeting, it's actually just one single Zoom link, and I will send that as soon as I'm able to highlight it over here. So I'll send that into the chat. Obviously, we are not doing that right this second. My office hours are closed for today because I'm hanging out here with all of you. But through that Zoom link, you can just save it, bookmark it, email it to whoever you think might be able to make use of it. People who've attended have had really good questions, and it kind of helped build out our offerings in the virtual resource library and what we wanted to talk about and start to touch on today. So in our forums, of which, oh, sorry, go ahead, Jamie. Did I cut you off?
I was just going to say, one of the questions we get a lot from folks is, we've got a question about Vacature, can Free to Thrive, would Free to Thrive mind helping us? And one thing that we, have not maybe actively publicized until the launch of VAN is that we provide technical assistance to any lawyer in California doing this work. And, if the office hours are by far the best time to get your questions answered because it's this like regular time that Erin's available and we've got it all set up. But if you have questions outside of office hours, by all means, reach out to us. Erin's probably the best person to reach out to, but we review drafts for people, we answer questions, and just know that that's a service that Free to Thrive openly offers, not just to our pro bono lawyers and our staff, but also to lawyers anywhere in California doing this work.
Yes, and if 5 o'clock on Mondays is not a good time for you, I am available by appointment separately. My apologies for Nugget. He pushed open the blinds, and Lord only knows what he saw. He is not thrilled about it. But I am available by appointment if 5 p.m. on Mondays doesn't work for you. And then these forums, one of which you are currently in the middle of, are to connect and help troubleshoot. So there are some things that we can talk about in these forums that are kind of the 10,000-foot view on places in the vacature process where you're struggling and maybe in your particular case. But if it's more case-specific, fact-specific, and it's not something you feel comfortable discussing within a group setting like this, then we would probably save those questions for office hours. But this is a good place to start if you've got a question that you can kind of give that 10,000-foot overview for. It's also an opportunity to connect with other people who are in this space. I don't know if people have Zoom burnout. I'm always really excited to see other people's faces because I get weird phone anxiety. So being able to read these visual cues is actually way more helpful for me. Plus, it's a nice chance to socialize after a year that people spend a lot of time indoors, not around other folks. So this is a good chance to do that. It also in the future will offer targeted trainings to anybody who's attending. One of the things that we'll be talking about a little bit later in our breakout session will be topics that maybe you think we should be offering more training on. This is very much meant to be an interactive process. We don't want to just like throw training at you that isn't going to be very helpful. So if there is a particular training that interests you, a topic that a lot of people are struggling with, you can look forward to us training on that in the future during these forums. So in order to join the Vacature Attorney Network, we do have a little form. We call it the member directory form. It's pretty straightforward. It allows you to input your proper pronouns so that we get that right when we are addressing you and anybody else in the future. And it makes it so that you show up in the Vacature contact form as a member of this organization, this network. You don't have to try and input it manually into that Excel file. Just that quick link that I sent in the chat will be sufficient and will get you all registered and set up. I'll be pulling from that Vacature Network contact sheet in the future in order to update this folder to make sure that everybody who is a member of VAN has access to all of the resources that I sort of flew through, and that you have the opportunity to look into them more thoroughly. In the future, all of the email announcements will be pulled from that list as well, because we don't want to spam everyone who got this initial kickoff email and send 300 people an email kind of unsolicited, because that is how you get marked as spam, and we don't want that. All right. So what we were hoping to do next is to break out into breakout rooms and go ahead and discuss some of these brainstorming pieces, including what additional resources or trainings would be helpful for you, what the biggest hurdle has been for you in your Vacature petition. We want to talk a little bit about how enforcing the court order for Vacature is going, and then we also want to take some time to get to know everybody.
What I'd like to do with our remaining time is to have each of our group leaders just share out any key takeaways from your discussion. So I'll have Tammy go first.
Okay, so we mostly spoke about some of the hurdles, you know, and one of those is just, we talked about compliance and getting the DOJ to actually remove events from the rap sheet and how difficult that can be, and that it should be a class action lawsuit. So that's where that went. And then what else did we discuss? Yeah, we talked about how, you know, you can pursue vacature in one county for the whole state, and like the realities of that, and whether or not anybody's done it. And if they have, like, share that experience, because if it's been, you know, easy to do, or, you know, let us know. I want to know how to do that. But those are basically the two things we discussed.
Great, thanks, Tammy.
Yeah.
How about Melissa?
I was in the same breakout room with Tammy, but just one other thing to point out is that the woman in our breakout room is with Fresh Start San Diego, and she was talking about the struggles of identifying people who are eligible for vacature relief, just based on looking at their DOJ report. I think that's really important to recognize, because, I mean, prostitution is one where we can, you know, use that as a red flag, but we see such a wide range of other charges. It's good to keep in mind that there might be survivors whose DOJ reports don't look like they're eligible, but they might be eligible upon further digging.
And kind of on that note, before you all move on, is we've been analyzing all of these DOJ reports, putting in all of the offenses that our clients have been arrested and charged for. And actually, most of them are getting arrested for drug offenses. Of the 32 clients whose DOJ reports we analyzed, there were over 200 drug arrests, which averaged out to about 7 arrests per person, and prostitution was about a third of that number. So there's going to be things that show up that don't necessarily scream like sex trafficking or labor trafficking. Drugs probably screams a little more labor trafficking to some folks, because it's moving drugs could be a form of labor trafficking. So it might be worth asking the additional questions and doing a small human trafficking screener when you're doing those intakes and looking at those DOJ reports.
Okay, thanks, Erin. And Erin, since you're already talking, do you want to share from your group?
I would love to. So in our group, we were talking about how excited people were to have Tammy as a resource for post-order compliance and tracking down the folks that they need to talk to make sure that records are being sealed and destroyed. And we're looking forward to a training on that in the future. And one of the things that we talked about was also when somebody is issued a ticket, they're not necessarily arrested, but they're issued a ticket. It can be really hard to identify when it's a city attorney case or who wrote the ticket, whether there's the police department or the sheriff's office. And we would like to look more into how to get those ticketing agencies to also seal and destroy those records. And then last, but certainly not least, we were talking about fines and fees, court fines and fees in San Diego in particular. There are other counties that waive those fines and fees, reimburse those fines and fees. The sheriff's office gives back whatever was forfeited. And that has not been the experience in San Diego. So just kind of looking more into the fines and fees process in San Diego, whether they're outstanding or if they've already been paid. So some things to look forward to in the future as we dig more.
Thanks, Erin. Pavi.
We had a pretty good discussion. Couple of questions that came out of the discussion. One is Christy here. She had a successful petition and order. However, one of the things that did not get vacated was the restitution order. And so if anybody has any information about how to help with that, please speak to Christy. And the other one is Julianne Bancroft here is doing lovely pro bono work with Vacature in LA and actually has a hearing on May 6th. So that is probably going to be one of the first hearings, if not the first hearing, I believe, in LA County. So, you know, to the extent that we can connect her to people to help prepare, just also how the judge is going to operate, I believe, I wrote the judge's name and now I totally forgot what it was.
Frimpong.
I believe is going to be handling all the petitions. So, you know, it's important for all of us to kind of help out Julianne and to just know how this judge is going to be handling these cases moving forward.
And Julian, if you have a few minutes at the end, if you want to stay back, I'm happy to chat with you and anyone else on the FTT team if you want to.
Thank you, Jamie. I appreciate that.
Yep. And Christy, we'll definitely get back to you about that as well. If you want to hang back, you can, or we can talk about that later, whichever you prefer. But that's
great. Thank you.
Definitely something we've talked a lot about. That's great. Thank you, Pallavi. Nick, were you in a separate breakout or were you in one of the other ones?
I was in a separate breakout. I think I'm like really left brain right now because we did only this the right column of questions, and I did the left column of questions, just sort of letting everyone know that like Tammy is the greatest resource in the world, and she will solve all of their problems. And so, Tammy, I'm really sorry for putting that on you. But really, we're just how excited everyone is to be a part of something like this, because this is really like paving a new path in the law. And it's nice to be around like-minded people who are all doing the same thing and, trying to really make a difference in people's lives.
Thank you, Nick. And okay, so I think that leaves me. So in terms of the biggest hurdles, the two things that came up for us were definitely topics I hope we'll include in future meetings. One is trying to figure out what to include and not include in the declaration, which is definitely something that anybody working on Vacature struggles with, because it definitely is a balance. And then multi-jurisdictional cases, which came up in one of the other groups as well. And then we also discussed whether or not it would be helpful to have a listserv. We talked about how right now the way that this van is set up is a one-way, free to fire. We'll email everybody out like meeting dates and times and information disseminate through our email list. Whether or not we want to have a listserv where people can email the entire listserv with questions, it's something we'll definitely take back and think about. And we talked about the pros and cons of listservs. We've all been on really good ones and not so good ones, or ones that kind of plug up your email, and we definitely don't want to do that. So we'll keep that in mind. And that was it. I think all the reports back. Just as a wrap up, just we're so grateful for all of you for participating and being a part of this network. The value in the network will come from who is a part of it and even just the 2 questions that came up already are things that I'm sure you're not the only ones asking these questions, and addressing these issues as they come up. So hopefully we can all learn and grow from each other. I certainly, Julianne, I will very much look forward to hearing how your hearing goes, because it's one of those, it will be the first. If it's a contested, I haven't asked yet if it's contested or not. It is contested. Okay. I think we may have emailed about that one. But yeah, so it will be, the first contested one. So we'll be waiting to hear how that goes, and really just learning from you, because it may be the first, but it will not be the last. So just thank you all for being a part of this. And I'm going to go back, let's try to go back to the PowerPoint if I can, to just at least share our contact info, if I can get back there real quick. Oh, actually, one last, I don't have our contact info, but the last open forum, I'm not going to share my screen because it's a very simple slide, is our next open forum is May 24th at 5 p.m. So these will always take place on the ever Monday this is in the month. What Monday is this? I don't even know. Last Monday? Fourth Monday? Where are we in the month? Fourth Monday, I think. Right? No concept of time these days. Whatever Monday this is, I believe fourth Monday, we'll always have the open forum that Monday. Third Monday? Is it the third? See? Don't even know. Okay, third Monday of the month will be the open forum. And then every other Monday besides the open forum Monday will be office hours. So you can always catch Free to Thrive on Mondays at 5 p.m. or by appointment some other time. And all of our emails are just first name at freetothrive.org. Erin's is erinh@freetothrive.org, but if you send it to Erin at Free to Thrive, it'll get to her as well. But mine is Jamie at freetothrive.org. Tammy's is Tammy at Free to Thrive. So if you want to connect with any of us, it's very easy to do that. And we hope that you will opt in. Just remember that in order to be added to this group, since we don't want to spam people who don't want to be a part of it, you have to actually opt in to being a part of it. And so hope you'll join us. And just thank you. I hope you all have a great evening. If anybody wants to stick around for the answers to these questions, you're welcome to, because you may have these come up later, but I didn't want to hold everybody back. If you'd like to go on with your evening. Thank you all for being here.